I'm just gonna pull up my text messages with Mackenzie because
Okay.
that's where all my notes are.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, yes. So, welcome back to Movie Whale, movie marathons stuff. This isn't really part of any specific series. This is just us watching Wish.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm Andrew.
yeah, we did that. I'm Mac.
Cool. So, I want to quickly, for anyone who doesn't know, remind. I'm doing this poorly. I want to remind everyone what the like the reactions were to this before it even came out, which was
True,
just
yeah, because there were some
over.
really strong reactions
Yes,
right out of the
it was
gate.
just overwhelmingly negative, like
Mm-hmm.
immediately. And I
Mm-hmm.
think some of it came from a genuine place of concern. They weren't crazy about the animation style. We're in a time period where AI is kind of getting its scrubby little mitts on too much. There was concern there. That's fair. There was also
Mm-hmm.
definitely a certain demographic of people that didn't like the, let's say, complexion of our female, that's the other part, protagonist. You know that
Okay,
was
well,
part of it.
to cry about a female protagonist from a Disney
Well,
movie that's essentially a princess movie, that's dumb. That's
yes,
dumb. I
but
understand that people do it, but that's dumb.
right, but it's not just that it's a princess, it's a black princess. People were pissed it was a
Yeah.
black protagonist. Not everyone, there were definitely some. And then the other part, though, that came up, everyone kept comparing that one bit from the King's villain song to like the most dramatic part of Hellfire from
Oh,
Hunchback of
yeah.
Notre Dame. Like, look at how far we've fallen, which was like one of the
The
stupidest things.
villains.
It was just so dumb because like we have other dumb songs in Disney movies and people have not complained. Like the
Yeah.
reindeer song from Frozen 2 or like
Well,
Lost
and
in the
I
Woods.
actually would recommend, I would mention Shiny from Moana because it's
Yeah, it
ridiculous, but it's a
is.
villain song. It is
There's
effective though.
yeah, it's
Like, and we're
effective,
getting
but
there.
it's
Shiny was
still
effective. I don't know about.
ridiculous. It's insane and
Yes,
silly. It's
yeah.
not meant to
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
like a pillar of musical technical ability. Neither was
Hmm.
the alligator song from Princess and the Frog. Songs can be silly, songs can be dumb. So I don't know. The reaction to this movie before it even came out, I thought was disjointed, weird, and bandwagon. But
Hmm.
I went in with very low expectations, and then I tried to go in. I tried to shift gears because I remembered before this started, before I started the movie, that these movies technically are made for children, and even though we as adults watch them and enjoy them, like there's so many people who hate the Disney Renaissance films. We grew up with the Disney Renaissance films. We love them. Like
People
critics
hate
at
those
the
films?
time, people didn't like
Oh,
Treasure
critics
Planet.
don't
People
like
didn't
them.
like
Okay.
Atlantis. Like, but we grew up with those. We love those. So I try to
Hmm.
watch this like with two different gears at the same time. I tried to watch it. How does it hold up as a movie? And how does it hold up if I were a kid watching this?
Okay.
And I
Hmm.
have a lot to say. But
Interesting.
I talk a lot and I'm trying to be better about it. So I like, as usual, I'd like to start with you.
I appreciate that, but I think I'm actually gonna Uno reverse this because
What?
I also have a lot to say on it,
Mm-hmm.
but I've had enough time to sort of like condense my thoughts, and I'm gonna come at it in a sort of argumentative sense, and I don't want to
Oh,
like
okay.
persuade anything before I hear what you have
Okay.
to
Okay.
say.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Cool. Okay, so I'll start.
okay.
Yeah, I have great. Like, I do like what you said there, because I do feel that you have to watch a film multiple times to have a solid opinion on it. I've only watched it once, an hour ago. Um, in general, though, I liked it quite a bit. I would not say I loved it. In recent years, I would not say it's better or even really close to Encanto
Mhm.
or any of the recent Pixar movies. Especially not Tangled or anything like that. But I did like it way more than Raya and Frozen 2.
Mm.
I think I'd
Okay.
probably prefer this to Frozen 1 just cuz I don't like Frozen 1 as much as a lot of people do. Um I I found Asha to be a fine protagonist. A lot of people again were complaining that all the princess characters are the same quirky, awkward personality, which I found to be unfair because you didn't care with all the previous ones, and now all of a sudden you give a
Right.
shit. Which is just, if you find that annoying, fine. But the amount of bitching people did was just not fair. Because I found her, she's a little awkward and she's a little clumsy, but she
Mhm.
has the most mature version of it of any of the
Well,
characters
yeah,
we've
and I would
had.
say if she's, like, clumsy or quirky, that's more a element of the medium than the character, I would
Yeah,
argue,
I think
because
so
every
too.
cartoon character has those goofy
Right. That's
moments.
been a thing since
I
Mulan.
feel like, she's not the same character as, like, Anna, for example. Like,
No,
she's
not at
not,
all.
like she's motivated, she's driven, sure, she's young, but
Right.
that's not necessarily a personality trait, that's just the
Hmm.
phase of life that she's in right now.
Yeah. And like I think there's also I don't know enough about writing characters to lay out I guess all the differences, but like Rapunzel is awkward and silly in a very naive way. Moana
Mhm.
is awkward and clumsy. She's anytime she's embarrassed because she's got to be like a leader, and it's sometimes bravado.
Mhm.
Not a lot of bravado, just a little bravado. And then with
Mhm.
Anna, it's just straight up sheltered child, never talked to anybody, so
Mhm.
she's an awkward little bean. And then I think Rhea, every now and then it was I don't remember that one as well. I didn't like it. This one, she
I didn't
seems
like
the
that one
most
either, I
I
wanted to.
yeah, we'll talk about it one day. But Asha
Mhm.
feels the most like she is comfortable and confident
Mhm.
in her
Agreed.
awkwardness. Like it's she's not embarrassed by it. It's just kind of part of her personality is that she's a little bit weird, and I think that's perfectly
Mhm.
fine. I have no issues with that. I like the goat.
I see, I don't know, I don't know, like, I guess I'm kinda surprised by this because I don't really see her as a quirky character.
It's limited, but
I
it's
don't know if I
there. I
missed
saw a lot
something,
of memes.
I don't know that how do I put it this way? Just because a person has a few awkward moments while they're navigating something that they're unfamiliar with does not
Hmm.
inherently make them an awkward
I think that's
person.
yeah. I think that's really good. I think that's more true to her than what again the memes made out because the memes I kept seeing
Mhm.
they just kept showing when she starts that tour and she's just like talking and like out of breath and she's being kind of silly, but like for the most part of this movie she's just very genuine and very
Uh-huh.
upfront, which I like
Uh-huh.
because I don't know,
Mhm.
just I like that a lot. It just felt very real. I like the goat. He makes more butt jokes than I would prefer, but I found him funny. I like him more than Hey Hey.
Yeah,
um
same.
and yeah, Alec Tudyk, of course, as usual, is great. The star is adorable, fucking cute as
Mhm.
hell,
Mhm.
and the grandfather character's fine. The villain's whatever. I don't think he's great, but I don't think he's as awful as some people might have made out.
Mhm.
I do like this idea of the villain is a legitimate ruler who's already a wizard. We have
Mhm.
some examples of that in the past, but it's not quite as blatant. And I think that's just kind of fun. The magical element's either something that's creeping up on the rule, or if there is magical rule, it's like taking over from the real king. Like Jafar was not the real
Okay,
ruler.
okay. Mhm.
King, what's his name? Is it King John? Yeah, King John in Robin Hood was not a
Uh-huh.
legitimate king. And even
Right.
the evil queen in Snow White, there is no kingdom that we see. It's pointless to think
Well,
of her as a
that and
legitimate
the magic doesn't really come into play until the
until
end of the film
exactly.
anyway, yeah.
So for them to know
Mm.
he's a wizard and for him to also be the king and the bad guy, I found interesting, just from like a movie standpoint. The music. I heard that the music was bad and lame. Lin Manuel Miranda knockoffs, which people thought was. I did see people push back on that because he didn't even do this music and they were shitting on the Lin Manuel Miranda style. I liked the music mostly. I do not like the first song because it's just exposition, but not in a
Mhm.
clever way like Encanto's opening song was.
Yeah. I feel like
Um,
that one song where she's giving the tour is a little bit of
it's
Encanto
yeah,
ripoff in a bad
it
way.
is
Like, it's
exact.
not the
Yes,
same vibe, it's
yes.
just a
I would
ripoff.
say I would agree absolutely. I'm not crazy about the Thanks I Get song, but I think it's fine. It's whatever.
Yeah.
It definitely shows his downfall more and more into madness, and it shows how insecure he is. So it still plays a role, but The So I Make This Wish song, I really like that one. I thought that was good and sweet, and it gets you all like inspired, and you can feel it in your gut. And then what was that, like the halfway through song, the Revolution song, that Now That We Know This, or
Mhm.
Now That We Know, that
Yeah.
song was amazing. I loved that song. And when the Queen shows up and then starts singing along with them, that
Yeah.
was dope as hell. I loved it.
Uh-huh.
Like also I was thinking about how heavy that was. There's not many Disney movies in which the goal is a coup. Like,
Right.
because again,
Right.
we have had movies where we fight a ruler, but again, it's either Jafar or King
Yeah.
John or the Queen and Snow White. But like, that's different than people organizing and fighting
And
a
taking down the
legitimate
whole
ruler.
system.
Like that
Yeah.
was legit. I'm into that.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I think the wish thing was very interesting. I don't remember what the reasoning was as to why they give him the wishes. I understand the whole motivation to get them back and the part they play in
Yeah,
people's
the
lives.
idea
And
was that when you have your wish and you are unable to make it happen, you feel sadness or you feel longing or you feel some sort of anxiety. Basically, your wish is your responsibility to try and achieve when you have your wish. If you give it to him, he can take care of it until he grants it for you. And so there's no work on your end, is
that's
the
dumb.
structure.
That's the
Yeah,
part. That's the part where
I'm
it's
waiting.
you don't
I'm
care if
waiting.
you're a little kid. Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
I'm
It's
trying.
good.
I want to
You're
get.
making good points. You're making good points.
Yeah.
Like everything you're
Um.
saying, for the most part, I agree
Yeah, I'm
with.
still not arguing it's like an A. I would, if I were to
Mhm.
sum up all the way to the end, I'd say this is probably a very weak B minus, or the strongest C plus you could ever get. Um,
Sure.
the let's see. I want to keep moving through here.
I do really like the end scene.
I do like the end scene. I like the end conflict and how it's like she just
Mhm.
inspires everyone. It's not like they outthink him. It's not like she has magic that's within her. It's not like I
Mhm.
didn't think they did anything dumb. I thought it was legitimately inspirational and cool. Because it's like a
Mhm.
really, I like this latest trend of community in the films. Like Encanto
Mhm.
did that, but it was kind of contained to one family. Now,
It's
granted, we
family
don't
focused, yeah.
yeah, and granted, we don't see like every character in this kingdom, but it is the kingdom that comes together to win. And I do like that. I vibe with that. Okay, briefly. I don't love the animation style, but I don't hate it. I think it takes a second to get used to. Some people were saying, though, it looks like it's unfinished. I don't think that's fair. I see what they were trying to
Yeah.
do. They were trying to find that bridge between computer animated and like drawn. Other films have kind of
Mhm.
done it a lot better lately, like Ninja
Mhm.
Turtles and I can't remember what it's called, but it's on Netflix. Uh,
Oh, Nimona.
Nimona, and then there's another one. It's like
Oh, okay.
Intergalactic or something like that. It's more of an adult film.
Oh, I don't know that one. Okay.
Not like that kind of adult film, but it's not like his movie. But they did it better than this one. This one, I think they still lean too hard into computer animated, and so they don't. But like by halfway through, I don't even notice anymore. It's like it's clearly not a quality thing. Like some people are trying to make
Mhm.
it seem like it's a
Style
style.
thing.
Like the quality animation is still there. It's just the style you weren't vibing with, and I can respect that. Um, Now the references to other Disney movies, I think
Yeah.
they
I'm good about those.
ride a line for the most part, and then only briefly step over it. Because for the most part, I think it's really fun and cute, and I think it's fair. This being like the 100th anniversary film, like I also get why they did that.
Mhm.
Um, at first, like I wasn't expecting it going in, and so when those all her friends are in that room, and one of them sneezing, and the other
Yeah.
one is very grumpy, and then Dopey is just like the guy who's Dopey. He's just straight up. He
He's just
looks like
dopey.
Dopey. He's got the purple hat
Yeah.
and the green shirt and the ears and all of it. Now them being there and being those characters, I don't find anything wrong with that. The
Mhm.
lines of dialogue that they incorporate to try to make it clear, like the one character's like, "I'm happy for you." It's like,
Right.
and then the one guy's like, "And you wonder why I'm grumpy." It's like, okay, I get it. Please, that's enough. That's enough. but
Yeah.
it's
I
not
wonder if they were
awful.
trying to help kids get it, but like kids
No,
don't know the seven
right,
dwarfs.
right.
So
Oh well, I think the lines of dialogue for the most part they are subtle enough, which is why I think they walk the line.
Mhm.
All the animals, I think, again, are pretty fun. The rabbits are cool, and when
Mhm.
the deer says, "Thanks for not eating me, John," he's like, "Don't worry about it, Bambi." I think at first that feels like, "Oh wow, a Bambi reference. That's crazy." But then I went through my head real quick and like, are there any bears in Disney movies that are named John? And there are. Little John from Robin Hood. And it was like, oh, those are
Mhm.
both references. So I think those are fine. I think like it's cute. Where it becomes a little much is okay. So when the king is crushing dreams and each one is a reference to a Disney movie, and he
Yeah, that
says,
was
"Oh, you
heavy.
want a nanny for your horrible kids?" That one's poppin'. And then we saw
Yeah.
the one where the guy is flying through the air and it's clearly Peter Pan and he says Neverland. It's
Neverland.
like, okay, you've kind of crossed the line now. And where it gets
Yeah.
worse for me is at the very end where there's a girl kind of named Wendy who wears blue who's now going to work with the boy who is just Peter Pan. He's wearing
Uh-huh.
green, has the red feather. Like, that was too much. You didn't have to do that. That's a bit far. The
How do you feel
mirror,
about her godmother cloak that she puts on in like the second act?
I don't hate that. That's again one where I felt like it kind of was riding the line. Her
Mhm.
becoming this new version of the fairy godmother, having the wand, I think is kind of cool. Because
Mhm.
like that movie is like what, 80 years old, 70 years
Yeah.
old. To have the wand be that and it be so simple and kind of fun, and her to have this magical element, I kind of like that. I think that's kind of cool.
Mhm.
The carriage is well growing plant spider legs as like a reference to Cinderella. Like there are elements here that I think were kind of fun. There's also
Mhm.
in the king's dungeon chamber, there's an apple with the venom goo that looks like a skull on
Yeah, I
it,
saw that
but
too.
like it doesn't come into it, so it's fine that it's there. So I
Right.
think for the most part, again, like keep saying, it walks the line of being okay, because on the other side of this, you have that live action Pinocchio, where he just has
Mhm.
cuckoo clocks that are Toy Story, 101
Right.
Dalmatians, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. Like, that was insane. That was stupid. That was too much. This, for the
It was
most
too
part, I thought
blatant.
was okay. Um,
Mhm.
because it also, it wasn't like characters from other movies were popping up. There's just a deer named Bambi and a bear named John and a couple other visual elements and
I
jokes.
did. I actually liked most of their
Yes,
like
yeah,
references and whatnot. I feel like especially this project's supposed to be sort of like the 100 years,
yeah.
celebration. Um, and I don't know. I don't actually have issue with most of those. I do take issue when it interrupted the flow of the story. Like, you really
Yes,
shouldn't
yes.
be cutting things or distracting from the moment, especially when he's crushing wishes.
I know,
Like,
I know.
dude, don't be
Yeah,
making jokes like that right now. That's not how you set the tone or the mood for this. Like,
yeah.
we all know, of course, that the hero is going to win because this is a Disney movie and it's also celebrating like Disney movies. So it's she's gonna
Hmm.
win. But like you should still have the tension. You should still sort of have like that fear that like, oh my gosh, these people's wishes, like they're just dying out here.
Right.
Like that's and that's what we're supposed to care about. And you
Hmm.
start making jokes about it? Like, come on.
I think that's a fair complaint on it being a movie. But like if you were to watch it as a kid, I don't think you'd care about that. But I don't think you're
I
wrong.
wonder how many kids got the references.
That's another good point, though. Again, it goes back to, is it necessary or not? That's the thing. It's
Mhm.
something that they put in there for the adults to notice, and the adults are the only ones who are going to
Mhm.
notice the tone change. So that's a fair
Mhm.
complaint. I want to see if there's anything else I like specifically liked or didn't like. I really do like the star and the yarn thing. The jokes that he kept using the yarn throughout, that was cute.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think in general I enjoyed it. I don't think it was nearly as bad as a lot of people said. I think it was cute and sweet, and I like Asha as a new like Disney princess. Though she's another one who's not a princess, so
Right.
it's a little bit confusing.
I mean, I
Um,
think the category has always been wobbly.
it has not
Like,
been wobbly enough. I have a lot to say about the Disney princess official lineup. I do not like it.
well, yeah, there's that. I mean, a lot of it is designed for income marketing
Right.
reasons. They'll include some that are not princesses and exclude some that are princesses simply because one is more popular than the other or is easier to make merchandise for than the other is.
Right.
But I don't know. I think the word princess has always been a little bit more symbolic than
That's
literal.
probably fair. Yeah. So she's a
Mhm.
Disney princess. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Last little bit. I did like kind of her friend Sneezy. No, Sleepy. How Sleepy betrays them, and then
Yeah.
he doesn't do enough. I kind of wish they would have used him more as a brainwashed villain.
Right.
Um, but him apologizing and his reasoning, it felt very cultish, and I like that because that was this whole
Mhm.
community was getting over that. I don't know. There are
Mhm.
themes in this movie that I don't think we've seen a lot of, if ever, in other Disney movies, and it was kind of cool to explore that. I
Mhm.
like that she likes drawing. I don't think they explored it enough. I like the little animation joke that they included. I thought it was cute.
Yeah.
I was afraid that it was going to feel too much like Rapunzel. It doesn't. She just has her little sketchbook,
No.
and it was fine. And
Mhm.
also, there could be more than one artist princess. So yeah, I don't know. I liked it. I feel the desire to watch it again at some point. I didn't really feel that with Raya. Um,
Mhm.
I hate to keep comparing it to Raya, but it's the most recent one I can think of that I did not enjoy.
Yeah. I really like that film is disappointing in a lot of ways because the world building should have been so cool,
Yeah, it's a
but
slippery slope.
it
We gotta
just
watch
didn't
it
hold up.
because I will talk a
Yeah.
long
We'll
time
talk
about
about
Raya.
that instead.
So okay, that's those are my general
Sure.
thoughts on the positives and negatives of Wish. In general, I did enjoy it. Music was mostly good. Two songs I really loved. The goat was cool. Villain is fine. Yeah. So, what about your thoughts?
So, I think it's
Mac is the
important to note that I
music person
agree
in
with
this duo, so she's gonna have a lot more to say.
well, and I'm also looking at the narrative structure of the piece and the character development and everything. The stuff that I wanna say doesn't matter to the kids, but it kinda does because I think kids know when things don't really make sense. They might be distracted by lights or animation or something for a bit, but, like, the stories that we really like are the stories that we feel close and connected to and that make sense to us. Think about how everybody really likes Mulan from our generation. That is probably one of the most solid stories to come out of Disney in our time period. Same thing with, like, Hercules, right? We, as kids, knew that these stories were good because we liked them. And so there's something about a good story that makes kids like it. So I'm not going to say that it's irrelevant to a kid's enjoyment of the thing, but what I'm talking about, a kid is not going to like care about.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that. And I think a lot of the film is cute in a Disney way. Like, if it was to be like a short somehow or, just maybe a part of like a Disney Channel show, I think it stands up. But I don't feel like this works as a movie, like plot wise. The concept is intriguing. Um, the characters are even kind of intriguing, but they don't pace themselves at all. And it leads to serious issues actually in the plot, in my take on it. Um, so the first issue is that they don't actually set up the villain very well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we as an audience will often just believe what a movie tells us because we have to in order for the story to work. And that's okay, especially in kids film. Um, but I just have so many questions
Mm-hmm.
about like how he became so evil because I think there was a backstory that they just scrapped for him and they never
Yeah,
included. And so his
that's true.
sudden fall from grace doesn't make any sense to me. Like there's this tapestry in his otherwise pristine office. There's this burned tapestry that
Mm-hmm.
he references at one point in a song about how he's never going to let something happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And it clearly has something to do with wishes and maybe wishes being kind of like crazy or hard to control when everyone has their own wish, right? And I'm definitely not arguing that we should have one person in charge of all the wishes of the world because that is some kind of messed up tyranny.
Mm-hmm.
But his desire to regulate and to help, I think it was a perfect opportunity for misguided
Mm-hmm.
rather than rather than having this backstory that I think they set up for him and then abandoned, they lose that at some point in making the film. And the only thing they have to lean into to make him really truly villainous, like in an irredeemable way, is he's egotistical. He's vain.
Yeah.
He's too happy about the way his face looks, and therefore he believes he should have all the power in the world. And that is somehow done through wishes, but he doesn't even use the wishes as a source of power until he falls to the dark side.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. I thought he was using the wishes for his own gain. And then he doesn't start. He specifically says that in like dialogue that he never thought to use the wishes. He never knew the power they had. And I was like, "What the fuck were you doing with them?"
Yes.
So that's a good point. That's
According to the structure of the film, sure, maybe he was being over the top with his control of the whole situation, but his motivation was, according to the film, his motivation was to protect and help.
Well, see, I think
so it makes no sense for his character to suddenly, like the moment he's questioned, he just goes right off the deep end, full on villain. Like it's hard for me to
a little
buy
rushed
into that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I see. I still took it as he's I think like a perfect combination of like pick your Disney evil queen, and then Shadow Man and Cusco. It's like Cusco but successful and never met Pacha. So I just having the dreams and like granting certain ones, it's just control. Like he's just an insecure, power hungry control freak, and he always was. So like the fall into evil, I think he was always kind of evil, but it's like fall into madness that is a little rushed, and that comes from the book. I just think it's nothing has ever happened to this kingdom where it became problematic enough for it to reveal whether or not he was truly evil. Because like he's been doing this thing of taking people's wishes and granting them whenever for years, and I think that is not as weak a point as the rest of the kingdom and the characters never questioning it up until
that's where
now.
I'm going next.
Yeah, that I think is a weaker point than him. It's still not good if they had a background that they abandoned. That's a fantastic point. But I think it's a stronger point that the kingdom was just like, yeah, this is fine. This is because like Asha is realizing and saying these things, and I'm like, bitch, I was thinking this as soon as you laid it out in your opening song, and you just now thought of this?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like, okay, so moving on from the king, because I still have questions and pokes about the character. I think the way that he is written is problematic, but noting that, moving to the next point, the people's, like the kingdom and the attitude of the people, especially of Asha, doesn't make sense. Because at some point in the film, he mentions, he was like, I granted 14 wishes last year. Isn't that enough? And someone else mentions that they only have like a wish ceremony about once every month. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, if you're a kingdom of any size, anyone can do the math on that. And not everybody's getting their wishes. And the simple fact that they're anxious for Saba, is it her grandfather,
like
to get his wish, reveals that they know as characters that not everybody gets their wish, and it's a possibility that he will die without getting his wish. And like that is something that Asha should have already known going into her interview with the king. And then she goes into the interview with the king, and they have a very interesting song where this is where they really should have set up what having the wishes does for the king.
Right.
Because the only thing he does is he talks about how he's going to protect them, which is cool if you're going to set up a fall or a sudden like reveal of character later in the film. But it's like not even 5 minutes after the song, he's established as this guy is evil.
There's no twist. You
cannot put up with him anymore.
There's no twist villain.
And like, okay, the pacing is super off because Asha goes in, she learns something she already knew, with the exception, like a little added spice, that Saba specifically will not be granted because it's too vague and it's hard to control that. To be fair, that's really dumb. His wish clearly shows him playing some music.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about that.
Right.
But But that's a part of the weakness of the movie, I would argue, rather than a weakness of the character, because the movie is not giving the characters solid enough reasons for the actions that they're taking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the villain doesn't have enough reason for his actions. Asha does not have a big enough reason to flee the king's chambers and, like, scream from the mountaintops, this guy's terrible. She doesn't have enough of a reason, any more so than she did when she walked in the room, right? Like, and so it's like, there's these issues with it. And I think fundamentally, when we come to all this, like, it shows in her song too. Like, her song is like, I've always been the person that just sort of like, I think one of the lines is roughly, I've always been the person that just does what I'm told. But she literally has not once done what she was told to do from the start of the film. So, like, that doesn't make any sense. There's no like character change established for Asha. She just learns that Saba's wish is not going to be granted and suddenly has to take down the entire kingdom. And like,
Well, you said you wanted to make this an argument. I want to poke back a little bit there because
okay.
I was trying to pay attention to that because I found that intriguing, and I was trying to compare it again to the other movies. Her goal is just to steal her family's wishes. I kept thinking.
Okay, good point.
I kept thinking. Okay, here we go. We're gonna get all the wishes. Everyone's wishes. Everyone's gonna get a wish, and she kept reiterating she's just going after her family's wishes, which again I think helped feed what I had already seen. What I thought is that she's just a very genuine, honest person, and that's her character, and I like that because again I was just trying to think again of how people were saying this movie was shit. Our previous princesses' motivations have been family driven in Kanto, but it's also a little bit out of spite because everyone hates you. And then with Rhea, it was vengeance and kind of having to fight for a whole kingdom. And then with Brave, which is older, but still, it's very much selfishness. With Rapunzel, it's very much naive selfishness. It's granted, but it's selfishness. This whole movie, like, I don't even know immediately what Asha's
she
wish
doesn't really
is.
even have anything on the line, really.
Right, but like, she's just doing this for people she loves and cares about, and I find value in that, and I do like that. Just because there's so many other movies where motivation is either not there, bad, doesn't make sense, or is just disjointed. And I think for her, it's fine. After seeing the guy go crazy and they have their song about revolution and then it's to take down the kingdom, I'm okay with that.
I don't know that that makes it better, though. If she's truly a selfless character, then her song being, This Wish, her line is she wants something better for all of them. She goes around the whole town seeing just random citizens' dreams and wishes and wishing that they could have their wishes, like not just her family's. Like this is extending to the entire town. Like in that case, the writing is not clear. And as much as I really want to like This Wish, because there are some lines in it that are great. I love the line, so I look up at the stars to guide me, because it ties in so well with everything that's going on in the film. It's also sort of inspirational. It shows that she's like looking for some guidance and some help. I really love it. And then I know this has been talked to death on the internet, but it's immediately followed by the line where she's throwing caution to warning signs. And I'm just like, I don't understand. How do we go from this to this in less than 30 seconds? It's such a difference.
The structures of the songs are different. I'm not familiar if there's a term for these songs, but for those main two that I like, I was able to get past it.
And I don't know, I don't mind the dynamic music. You mentioned that you didn't like Frozen 2 earlier, not necessarily in any sort of hateful way, you don't like it, right? I actually really enjoy it. I didn't like it the first time I watched it. I watched it again, and the intricacies in the music, I am very intrigued by. And so I don't mind the fact that Wish has some creative music. In fact, I think the instrumentals in the songs are some of the best parts of the movie. But the lyrics need help big time. And they create bigger problems for the characters and the plotting that's going on in the film that already has cracks in it. They drag those open and point out the issues in a lot of ways. So I as much as I'm enjoying the music, as much as I really want to be inspired by this wish, the character flaws keep jumping out at me based off the lyrics. And the fact that, like, there's these, I don't know, it's just the I wish, like, her song ironically is an I want song, an I wish song, or not ironically, fittingly. Um and it's right where it's supposed to be in the plot structure of things. When it comes to a musical, an I want song usually goes right after the character realizes that something is different and they have to want something. Now, sometimes it sets up the film, sometimes it's more of like they fight through stuff and they're like, I really want this, I'm going to sing about it. But this is right where things should be. It's like right where the Wizard and I is in Wicked. And it's like mathematically, like on a chart, that's good. But what she sings about and the way that they make the song apply to the entire island, the entire kingdom, isn't in line with what's happened in the story yet. And so there's just some things that this feels like a second draft. Like, all the pieces are there, but they're not polished and they're not quite plotted correctly. The whole movie takes place within the span of 48 hours. Like, and that's incredibly fast for a man to fall into madness, for a queen to leave her husband, for for a little 18 or 18, I guess, 18-year-old character to bring down an entire kingdom. And, like, granted, it's a Disney film.
Yeah, I was the same. I was gonna fight back on that because many of our Disney movies take place over the course of 12 to 48 hours.
Moana takes more time.
Yeah, well, okay.
Moana's a pretty concentrated film.
Yes. Well, see, I think, and to be fair, I don't think you're wrong. But I do think Moana is like one of the best examples we can pull from. There are many, many other Disney movies in which a lot happens in 48 hours. Most of the time, it's falling in love with your soulmate and spending the rest of life with them. And that does not...
usually within the span of one song.
Right. And that often does not get criticized. So while I don't think you're wrong, I don't... like in that a lot happens, I don't think it's maybe fair to expect certain things to take longer than other things if it's a Disney either element or cliche, because that's how these films happen. A lot happens in a short amount of time.
But a lot of them have time skips. Like,
oh well, yeah, like Mulan, like that's different. That works. But like you said,
and it's
characters.
I'm not trying to say that stories can't happen within 48 time frames, especially for kids, 48-hour time frames. I think more the problem is with what they're trying to do, they don't make it make sense. That all of it would happen in that short of a time span. The fact that she learns something kind of small and is immediately galvanized to change everything. And granted, she's like, at first she's like, I'm just going to take my family's wishes and we're going to get out of here, which is respectable decision. I like that choice. But it's not like she's not allowed to really do anything with that choice before she's being pushed on to the next thing. And like the plot is squished and condensed, and there's a lot, like, I'm gonna be honest, the song that happens after the star comes down, like You're a Star.
Yeah, the animal one. That's kind of dumb.
It's a waste of time. Like, there's so much that needs to be done in this plot, and they're gonna spend a full song repeating the idea that you're a star, you're a star, you're a star.
I can't help but think it was kind of fun. I like it more than the Lost in the Woods song, just because I felt.
Sure.
See, I went into this one feeling that this was going to be like a lighter tone than Frozen 2, because Frozen had already set a tone that was a little heavier. It's not as twinkly. The promotional stuff for this one have a cartoon star flying around, so the talking animals all singing a song and a bunch of subtle little references to other Disney movies. I was like, I'm having fun. But I do get it. We do kind of go back and forth with tone slightly. And it was very quick after a song, which I don't typically like. When it's song, 2 lines of dialogue, song. I don't like that, so I do agree. So I see your points, and I do think you've made some good points, which is why I think I still stand by the thing I said at the beginning. This is like a really solid C+, because I think the good stuff is really good.
I wouldn't argue with that.
I think but I think when you say the bad stuff is like kind of bad, I think that's fair, but I would not say this is a shit film or an indication that Disney is falling off. I think it just
I
might be
wouldn't
maybe it was
Okay, I
rushed.
wouldn't say that it was a good film. I would say it had serious production problems. Not
Probably.
production in like aesthetic, but like getting it made, I think
Well, I
had serious
think
issues. And I think that the film suffers because of it. And I don't
yeah.
think it's wrong to say that. I
No.
think the film could have been something really cool, but they fundamentally started off of a here's how I know somebody who didn't really know their stuff with stories was involved or in charge with this. The reason I know that is because every single wish story in folklore, even in a lot of Disney films, is a cautionary tale. Think of the genie.
Mm.
Every
Mhm.
single time you make a wish, the
Mhm.
trick is you need to be careful what you wish for because it's
Mhm.
gonna come back to bite you.
Mhm.
And I think that is totally missed by this film. And
I
I really think that it could have used more consequences, essentially. I think the
uh-huh.
wishing should have been more present. I think there should have been consequences or chaotic jokes or even, like different unexpected things that happen to the characters based on wishing. That would have been a lot better for the film.
I actually want to push back on that. I think this is actually a step up from that. At least the way
Mhm.
I interpreted it because I was thinking how is this going to compare to Puss in Boots and The Last
Sure.
Wish? And I
Mhm.
had not thought about Aladdin as much, just because the star was really in my head. But like
Mhm.
that's fair. But
Mhm.
like you think about Aladdin, you think about Pinocchio, you think about Puss in Boots, and yeah, the cautionary tale. I think that's very true and very fair. But what this film did, I think, I say film to sound artsy, it was very clear that all of the wishes, and maybe this is unrealistic, but all of the wishes were things that were potentially obtainable. Not quite. I understand that some of them were a little bit weird, but it's how they are portrayed and how people talk about them that ends up becoming important. And like what they are to people, it's their hope, aspiration, and ambition. And the whole point
Mhm.
is that you have to work towards your wish. You don't want
Mhm.
some crazy wizard or some magical star to just poof it into existence because it can get kind of weird or crazy, and then it's out of
Mhm.
your hands. Your wish
Mm.
is yours, and it's up to you to work for it. I didn't think for a second, because I was probably naive or I thought this movie was going to be better than it could have been. I didn't think for a second that Star was going to fly in and grant all the wishes. Like I knew that's not where they were
Yeah.
going, and I really liked that it wasn't. Her
Mhm.
being a fairy godmother to help maybe with the wishes. The
Mhm.
magic has a little element involved because it's a Disney movie, that's fine. But the fact that the queen is like, you have a wish to fly and you have a wish to make a machine that flies, you two should work together. That's cool. I like that. I
Yeah,
like
no,
I like the
I'm not pushing
portrayal
back
of
on
that.
that bit at all. I
Mhm.
think the message, I mean, Princess and the Frog message, right? The idea that you can wish on the star all you want, that can be your heart's desire, but you have to work to make it happen. Like that, I think totally fits in this, especially with the whole deal of like surrendering your wish so that you don't have to worry about it anymore and then hoping it just gets granted for you versus having the longing, having the pain, if you will, of having your wish and not having it figured out yet.
Mhm.
Like, I think that is where the film really should have put its focus. But instead, it spends most of its time talking about wishes as if there's some sort of like currency. We don't actually
Mm.
see people engaging with their wish at all because they've been separated from their wish. Like the idea, like you were saying with Sleepy, like the idea that he was almost brainwashed or afraid of the thing that he's been wishing for his entire life being taken from him or in him never getting it, and that impacts his actions. We needed way more of that
Mhm.
in this film.
That I think
And
that's
instead
fair.
what we get is the character that knew that wishes weren't always granted, really, really wanted to go care for the wishes. Like she has this passion for wishes, but she's never like looked into it. She's never done the math.
Mhm.
Like she goes in and she finds out like the wish that her grandpa wants is not going to get granted, and that sort of like changes things for her. Fair, I understand that. I would also be bothered by that. Um, But instead of spending time with the consequence of giving up your wish or the consequence of keeping your wish, right? And like maybe she meets someone who didn't surrender their wish and they're like,
Ah.
it sucks, but I'm glad that I have it. Or maybe she is that character. Maybe she learns about wishes and so she doesn't surrender hers when she's 18 years old, and that's what the story's about, right? Like there's a whole lot of more interesting ways you could do this instead of just a basic power struggle over who has the bag full of wishes. And I feel like that's like the film is supposed to be about wishing and how important and impactful it is, and they actually separate themselves from wishes more
Mm.
than anything else. They become this abstract, rather than being the heart's desire like they're supposed to be, they become these tokens that make things happen in the
Mm.
story. um
I
yeah,
see
I don't
that.
know.
I see that.
Mhm. There's a
It's
there's so many different directions you could take a story like this, and I feel like they picked the most basic one, which is just there's a power-hungry, selfish, vain leader, and there's someone who wants to take that and change it.
mhm. So I don't think that's as
That's the
common
thing.
in Disney movies though as we might think. I think there's a lot of films now like that, but I don't think that's as typical in a Disney movie. Because usually it's I don't. We have a lot of movies where
Usually
the
Disney movies are character driven.
yeah.
Mhm.
I guess that's fair. But I still feel like it's Asha's character is driven by Asha's character. Her like I still thinking that her
Mhm.
character is just honest and wants to do what she thinks is right. I still feel that. You might be able to make a Mary Sue argument because there's not really an arc for her, but I don't
Mhm.
expect that very often again for a Disney movie, especially for
I don't
the
think that she
heroines.
needed to change. I think, a great maybe comparison here would be Mirabelle in Encanto,
Yeah.
because she doesn't actually need to change. She has to go through a growing and learning process so that she
Mm-hmm.
knows about her family history and what is going on with all of her family members,
Right.
and she has to become a little bit more compassionate towards some of those
And
family
she's kind of
members.
found a role that that works
Mhm,
for
but
her.
she doesn't have to change who she is, or she doesn't really have to learn any, like, identity lessons, right?
Right.
She's still Mirabelle at the end of the film. Whereas I feel like in this film that's very similar with even
Not as
less
impactful.
change, and it doesn't sit right because there's less personal involvement from other characters. Like, Mirabelle goes around and she has one-on-ones with
With
every single one
yeah,
of her family
yeah, that's
members,
a good point.
and this one is just Asha trying to do everything for everyone, and there are some friends that are involved, but it feels very trite, very rote, like, you have
Yeah,
to have the friends that are
it's
involved,
also
so there
rough
are
because the
friends.
friends are all references to Snow White.
Yeah.
So it's I think at the end they kind of stand on their own as characters, especially Doc.
Mhm.
I don't remember her real name,
Mhm.
but Doc's character.
Right.
But like they all
Mhm.
kind of have lines. They're all kind of there. They're all part of that song. Like they do feel involved, and I think it's better for kids who don't know that they're references. I think it'll be
Mhm.
more impactful for them. But for me, at first, I was like, okay, so where does the joke end and the character
Mhm.
begin? Because it does
Mhm.
seem to happen, but it's a little bit of a gray, fuzzy line where it transitions into that. So yeah, I kind of forgot what my point
Yeah.
was.
And I mean, I've talked up and down about the film, but I feel like at the end of the day, it's not dismal. Like, there are worse films for sure out there. I just feel like this film has some really, really significant weak spots that aren't
Things that are
they're not
easy
it's not like you can say, "If
fixes.
you just ignore these 5 minutes, that's fine."
Right.
It's like, it's throughout the entire
Yeah.
film and story, and so it's I don't know, it's
I
just
think it's also
broken for me.
right. If you're to give it the benefit of the doubt, I think it's also it's a little bit of that. There's probably some rushed elements, maybe a little bit of laziness, but there's also a couple of experimental things that may not have
Mhm.
worked, and it adds up to being more unfortunate.
I
If
actually I think the animation is an example of that, because I don't think the animation is poorly done, in the sense that I think there's artistry there, I think there's intention there, I think that they planned it out, and it in concept, I feel like it should look nice,
yeah,
but I actually don't like looking at it.
well, yeah. Like I said, I think it definitely took some getting used to.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't hate it. I would definitely be down, like, if I were to have a kid, I'd be down for them to watch it. And I'd rather
Mhm.
watch this than some others.
Sure.
But I do not fully disagree with your points. So
Mhm.
I think we're at
I
a.
think this is someone who is I pay attention to plots, and, like, if I were
I mean, I
writing this or if
try.
I were
It's not
trying
like
to
I'm
give
completely
feedback
plot
on there
ignorant.
well, sorry, no. That's not what I meant.
This dumbass. He doesn't know a plot if it hit him in the face.
I literally went to college for how to
I
write an interesting
know. I
character in a
lived with
condensed
you.
story. Like, I I've seen really, really good examples of solid stories that are tied together and everything
Yeah.
is consistent, and I've seen Disney films that do that, even though if they're not my favorite, I've seen them be technically wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
narratively wonderful, and I this wasn't it, and I feel like it's a shame because it could have been something really interesting, it could have hit all those notes they were trying to hit for the 100th anniversary, but
Yeah,
it
that's also
it
a
falls
shame
pretty
that it.
short for me.
Yeah.
It falls pretty short.
The thing I think I've been getting caught up in lately as well, and that's probably have to be like my last point, and then I'll let you have make your last point, is again comparing it to other movies and what people do and don't care about. So like
Mhm.
there are some things I think this movie does better than better Disney movies, and that for me
Mhm.
gives it like more slack, I guess. Like if you were to compare it again to Mulan, like we said, is one of the better ones. I don't think Mulan does well enough to illustrate her relationship with her friends at all. Even
Okay.
with the time lapse, I just don't think they
Mhm.
make it. They don't illustrate it well enough to the point where they're willing to
She's an
sacrifice
outsider.
themselves and work with her at the very end of the movie. I love that they do. Everyone loves that they
Mhm.
do. It's great to watch, but it doesn't really work. But in
Kind
this
of the only
movie,
reason that they do that narratively is because they're the only identifiable
exactly,
characters that we've been
exactly.
hanging out with. They're not actually that
Right.
bonded with her
Yeah,
as a
this movie
character.
I think does better illustrating that they are friends, that she has a group of friends, that
Mhm.
she's involved with a group of friends that then all work together to help her. But as we've already pointed out, there's weaknesses with that even. But I don't think it's not like if we were to talk about Mulan, we wouldn't immediately complain about the lack of development that she has with her other characters in the film. So that's just something that I get caught up in. So it seems like they spend more time, or at least they do better implying some things, but then they have loosened on these other things we're more used to, and then we focus more on that. I don't even know if that's entirely fair to say because I've only seen it the one time. But I like we have lots of animal sidekicks. We have some that are really dumb and pointless. Some that are just stupid. I think this one is a combination of both. I think you can make an argument for both of them. But I think more people would probably argue it's dumb, and I think that might be bandwagon hating because there's already negative things they don't like.
Sure.
And I think you kind of have to look at some of these elements separately and as a whole if possible. Where I don't think the points you make are wrong, but I think it might be
Yeah.
stronger than what we might even be saying. Because again, I do
I don't think
think
so.
I,
'Cause I think
I think so, maybe a little bit, because I think it's better than the classic movies, but no one dares complain about the classic
sure.
movies
It's better than Snow White,
and
Sleeping
Cinderella
Beauty.
and Sleeping Beauty.
Probably Cinderella. Cinderella is more consistent to its characters, though.
Yeah, but they're not good characters. They're shallow as hell, all of them in Cinderella. It's the most basic story you could possibly think of. And I honestly think you could make an argument it's better than Beauty and the Beast. What? That's because Beauty and the Beast's songs are beautiful, and we love Belle,
Mhm.
and we love Beast. But it's a ridiculous love story. There are so many
Mhm.
weird inconsistencies and plot holes that the live action did amazing backflips to explain all of them, and I know you said they weren't all necessary. I disagree. But no one cares because it's a beautiful film and we love it. We love it. I
Yeah.
think there are things like there are things in this movie that they do better than they do in Beauty and the Beast. But no one would dare say that because Beauty and the Beast is a classic we've grown up with, and this is a film that we watched as an adult, and we can see all of the seams, we can see all of
Okay.
the flaws.
Then maybe the way to put it is the things that I care about or that I fundamentally believe are key to a good story. Those things are broken or need fixing
Okay.
in Wish rather than the other things. Like if we're using Beauty and the Beast as an example, yeah,
That's
Beauty and the
fair.
Beast is way less plausible, right? But if like when we're following the character of Belle, everything she does makes sense for her character, and she is given good reason for every action that she takes. In the sense that she establishes herself as an intelligent and kind character who wants to go on adventures and isn't afraid of things. So when we see her, like, talk back to Gaston, or, even like kick him out of her house so he falls in a mud puddle and she feels no remorse about that. When Philippe shows up and we've seen the care she has for her father, she gets on the horse and she goes and finds her dad. She enters the spooky castle. She learns to hate the beast. She runs away. The beast comes out there and saves her, and he puts his life at risk. He's like down in the snow. Then she is compassionate enough and adventurous enough and brave enough to make the change of character to help him up on the horse.
Yeah.
Like there are reasons given for every action, and I'm not sure that
Well,
this film has that.
that part. Yeah, you're right. But there is still a considerable amount of Stockholm syndrome or Florence Nightingale effect, and it's not to be romanticized, but it is. And we don't care because it's beautiful and we love it and they sing really nice and the candle is charming. Like, there are flaws to all the Disney movies. And I just feel like as we watch them more, as we get closer and closer to 30, I think we have to remember how we watched them as a kid. At least a little bit. Just a little bit. But I will say, I don't think you're wrong about the things you say. I just think, I don't know if they matter now. They should have mattered then, or at least they should also matter for those films, and I don't think they do. I think these things are only going to continue to get worse as we get older, not as they continue to make movies.
It's not the impracticality of things that bothers me, though. It's the inconsistency or the lack of logic in them. And understandably, like, fairy tales aren't supposed to be baseline logic, but there are supposed to be reasons for things occurring. And there's supposed to be an understanding. Like, stories are designed to tell you what to expect. There are still good stories with plot twists and whatnot, but everything should line up with what has previously existed in the story. And this is not that.
Yeah, I've not watched it enough to really be able to argue that point. So I'll have to defer to you for now.
It's not like you have to agree with me. That's just what bothers the film about me.
That's fair. But I think we would both say 'tis not a whale.
No, unfortunately. I wanted it to be. I wanted to be the person that liked the film that everybody hated.
Well, I think I'm at
don't.
least in that boat. I like it more than a lot of people did, but 'tis not a whale. Not at all.
Not a whale.
No. I think that's it for that one.
Yeah.
That went longer than I thought it would.